Steel is everywhere. In fact, every single product humans produce can be put into two categories. Either steel is used directly in the product, or steel was used to produce the product in the first place. Don't believe me? Then take a look around. What do you see? Well, do you see cars, trains, or the building of your wall? Well, that is easy. Obviously, they fall into the first category. Steel was used directly in these products. But what about the wooden chair you're sitting on? What about the plastic bottle right next to you? Or what about the clothes you wear? Well, how do you think the wood for the chair is cut? What do you think the molding machines for the plastic or the sewing machines to make your clothes are made of? That's right, steel. Although nobody realizes it, steel is crucial for our modern life. And the result of this dependency? An industry that produces 1.9 billion tons of steel every year. If France would actually get all of this capacity of our steel production, they could produce 29 Eiffel Towers per hour, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. But the steel industry is not only gigantic, but also incredibly energy intensive. From the iron ore mining, the preparation of the iron ore, the actual blast furnaces of the steel making, to the heat treatments, castings, rollings, the whole steel making process takes an incredible amount of energy and heat. So it is no surprise that with the industry's size and its energy intensity, the steel is actually responsible for 7% of our global CO2 emissions right now. For comparison, that is in the same ballpark as agriculture or fashion. Yet in the media, everybody talks about sustainable clothes, reducing emissions by becoming vegan, or not using plastic straws. But nobody talks about steel. Nobody talks about this giant industry emitting 7% of the global CO2 emissions. And why is that? Well, while it is true that steel is surrounding us in our everyday life, we don't see steel as the final product. We see it as the food that we eat, the clothes that we wear, or the electricity we use. So it is only natural that our attention is on the emissions of the agriculture industry or the fashion industry and not the steel industry behind that. But now it is time that we drag this behemoth of an industry out of the shadows and take a good look at its emission, the possibilities to reduce them, and the most important question, what are the global industry leaders doing right now to reduce these incredible 7% emissions? Let's start with the emissions. Right now, 1.8 tons of CO2 are emitted when we produce 1 ton of steel. Compared to other metals like aluminum with 11.5 tons per produced ton of aluminum, that's quite little. But due to the incredible size of the steel industry, it quickly adds up to the 7% we talked about. To even have a chance to mitigate climate change to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we have to reduce these emissions by 80% until 2050. And in theory, that's actually possible. Right here, you see the 4 most crucial steps for this reduction. First of all is, of course, heavily increasing energy efficiency in all plants. As you have seen in the pictures, that means a little bit more than just replacing all light bulbs with LEDs, but it's still the easiest step to take. Next, we have recycling. As the steel is one of the few materials we have that can be infinitely recycled, it goes without saying that increasing the recycling rate of steel will reduce emissions. However, even that will be a challenge because in North America, for example, the recycling rate for steel is already at 71%. And now we come to the 2 major challenges. Implementing all of the new sustainable technologies available and replacing the core of the steel industry, which is coal, with hydrogen. The steel industry is an incredibly complex process where you could write a couple of hundreds PhDs about and still wouldn't know everything. Re-engineering the entire global steel industry within a little under 30 years, while it took 150 years to build it to the state it is in now today, and making this brand new steelmaking process economically feasible will be incredibly challenging. But in theory, all of this is possible. We can decarbonize the steel industry until 2050. So only one question remains. Are the industry leaders taking these steps towards decarbonization, or are they not? And the honest answer is no, they do not. The Bao Group, the world's largest steel producer, does not even have a sustainability tab on its website. The World Steel Association, a non-profit organization whose members control 85% of the global steel production. They have a sustainability website with nice looking visions and graphs, but they don't have any commitments, any reduction targets, or any measurements, which means everything that is on there are just empty words. Of course, not everything is bad. The second largest steel producer, ArcelorMittal, has a reduction target set, 25% by 2030, which is not enough, but it's still better than nothing. And then, of course, there is the good news. There are companies out there like H2 Green Steel, for example, a young steel company from Sweden that take hydrogen at the core of the steelmaking process. They take all the new available technologies and produce truly sustainable steel. But given the tiny time frame we have to execute these emission reductions, the steel industry and especially the global leaders are not doing nearly enough to reach these goals. However, because I really don't want to be responsible for you crying yourself to sleep tonight because you think the world is going to end, let's talk about solutions. Of course, the biggest leverage lies within the industry leaders themselves, or within the government to create some incentives or CO2 taxes to accelerate this change. But with this video, I'm not talking to government officials or I'm not talking to industry experts. I am talking to you, people like me, average consumers who just want to do something good and protect the environment. So what can we do to accelerate this change? Well, we don't really have the power to just stop buying steel because, as I said in the beginning, we don't buy steel. We buy it as part of another product that we want or need. But luckily we have one thing, and that is our voice. We can talk. I know that sounds incredibly trivial and boring since climate change is already one of the most discussed topics in the media right now. But the steel industry is missing from this conversation entirely, and that's why we have to put it there. So if you like the video, feel free to share it, to post your own thoughts, discuss it, or whatever you want to do. Or if you didn't like it, also feel free to correct me, to make your own video, your own post, whatever it takes to get a conversation going. Because as long as we can do this, we still have a chance, and the countless hours I spent on producing this video weren't for nothing and have been worth it. Thanks.